Worlds here. Hey guys. Alternate Worlds here, back with part 3 of What If Emiya Shirou was Isekai'd into Danmachi. I would like to thank the author Rayish for making this incredible story. The link and story title will be in the description below. Please make sure to like and subscribe. But with all that being said, let's begin. Chapter 7. Okay, that's the last one, Shirou said as he picked up the crystal stones from his kobold hunt. Shirou hunted with ease, even though it was his first time hunting monsters. Perhaps it was because he targeted the group of monsters from a considerable distance. A hunter who can take down their prey without being detected makes the hunt more effective. One by one, Shirou shot his targets, causing panic among the monsters. They scattered, running in all directions, trying to escape the projectiles shot from Shirou's black bow. But none of them escaped his lethal shots. The monsters couldn't hide from Shirou's keen sense of smell, which detected the magical energy within them. Though shooting kobolds from a distance was easy for Shirou, the hard part was gathering the drop items left behind by the monsters. Trace on, Shirou summoned a small bag, just big enough to hold the crystal stones he had collected. Slinging the small bag over his shoulder, he began descending the mountain. The mountain he was on was dry and full of small rocks. From the top, one could see down without obstruction, which was one reason why Shirou had such an easy time shooting his prey. At the foot of the mountain, a young man sat on a rock, waiting for Shirou. He stood up when he saw Shirou coming down the mountain, showing no signs of exhaustion or injury. Shirou-san, I hope you've got good news from your hunt. Shirou shook his small bag, and the sound of the crystal stones rattling could be heard. Here's my haul. I guarantee none escaped. Tyler raised an eyebrow. You work fast, Shirou-san, he said, shaking his head before asking, are you interested in becoming a full-time worker for our town? Shirou didn't need to think long before replying, sorry, I'm not interested in staying in one place. I want to travel. Living in a city and protecting its residents wasn't a bad job, Shirou thought, but traveling from city to city, from village to settlement, searching for dangerous monsters and eliminating them would help more people. As they rode their horses back toward the city, Tyler asked, traveling, huh? So that means you're planning to go to the dungeon city, Orario. Orario? Shirou repeated, unfamiliar with the word. Yes, surely you've heard of it. Even if you live in a remote place, everyone knows that city. It's where the dungeon is located, the place where monsters are born, Tyler explained. A place where monsters are born. Shirou was stunned by this information. He thought that instead of wandering aimlessly, it would be better to go straight to the source of the problem and deal with it there. Tyler-san, could you tell me more about that city? I've never heard of it before. Tyler smiled and began telling the story as they rode toward Gusnansel. Shirou listened attentively to Tyler's explanation. The young man told him how the city of Orario was created to prevent monsters from emerging into the world. It was also where the gods bestowed their blessings through their sacred blood, known as Ichor. Adventurers who received these blessings first had to join a god's familia. With the blessings of their respective gods, adventurers could fight monsters much stronger than themselves. They grew from being weak to becoming more powerful through their experience hunting monsters, known as Isekai'd, which could be tracked and updated by their god. The adventurers' progress could be seen quantitatively in their status, which measured their strength, dexterity, agility, and magical power, magic. Each was ranked from 0 to 999, with 0 to 99 being I, 100 to 199 being H, 200 to 299 being G, 300 to 399 being F, 400 to 499 being E, 500 to 599 being D, 600 to 699 being C, 700 to 799 being B, 800 to 899 being A, and 900 to 999 being S. If an adventurer's status reached at least rank D and they had gained enough Excelia, their god could raise their level, resetting their status to 0 again. New adventurers started with level 1 and a status of 0. All of this reminded Shirou of the RPG video games that were popular in his world. Characters started at level 1 and kept gaining experience points, EXP, to increase their level and strength. Shirou wondered if there was some connection between video games and this world. Could the gods be playing a game and implementing it in the mortal world? Or, was he thrown into a game world? Shirou-san, we've arrived, Tyler's voice interrupted Shirou's wandering thoughts. While I go get your reward, I'll also talk to the mayor about arranging transportation for you to Orario. Riding a horse all the way will be tough, it's better if you go with someone who has a carriage, Tyler suggested. Thank you, Tyler-san, Shirou replied, nodding slightly. He had no reason to refuse such kindness. Not only that, but Tyler had also opened a path for Shirou so he wouldn't wander aimlessly. While waiting, Shirou reflected on his choices and his past. He remembered how he ended up in this world, getting sucked into a portal along with Gilgamesh, the king of heroes. How he was saved by an old man and later met the beautiful being he had never seen before, the elf named Saria. He had met new people he had never known before. Stranded in a new world that even Archer had never seen. Shirou started to feel a bit homesick for Rin, Fujine, Saber, Issei, and even hearing Shinji's voice would bring him some comfort. But such was fate, no one could predict it. Perhaps in the future, he would travel to Orario and meet new people. He would continue pursuing his dream of becoming a hero of justice. For that reason, he hoped that Familia he would join would be fair and just, not abusing their power. Familia are built through the blessings of gods. If I can understand a god's character, maybe I can gauge the Familia and the people in it, Shirou thought. Shirou began recalling the gods he had read about. He knew only a few Japanese gods and a little about the ancient Greek ones. As he pondered, Tyler emerged from the town hall with good news. Shirou-san, good news. There's a man who's heading to Orario now. You can join him and ride with him. Shirou was surprised, he hadn't expected to leave so soon, but there was no point in hesitating. He decided to head for the city. Thank you, Tyler-san. Tyler led Shirou to the carriage, and Shirou followed him. When Shirou saw the carriage, it seemed familiar, as though he had seen it before. I heard there's a young hero who can clear out a monster nest on his own. An old man stepped down from the horse-drawn carriage. A cold sweat broke out on Shirou's forehead. He hadn't expected the old man who saved him before to be standing right in front of him. Arthur-san. Oh ho, I didn't expect young Shirou, who once wanted to be a student, to turn into a hero. Arthur said with a faint smile. Chapter 8. Gruduk, Gruduk. The sound of the horse's hooves echoed from inside the carriage Shirou was riding. He had placed all his rewards and meager equipment inside the carriage. The crystal stones he had collected were handed over to the Guild of Gusnansel. Now, the money in his possession amounted to 110,000 valis. So, you're headed to Orario, huh? That's different from what you said earlier, Arthur broke the silence from the driver's seat at the front of the carriage. Hearing this from inside, Shirou blushed in embarrassment. I changed my mind. I think my abilities could be put to better use as a hero. Ahahaha. The old man laughed heartily, holding his large belly. Kids these days, always so fickle. Even though I'm a bit sad that you won't be going to become a philosopher at Silverleaf Academy, becoming a hero in Orario is a much better fit. Even from inside the carriage, Shirou could see the wide smile on the old man's face. Did you know that, besides being a philosopher, I also wanted to be a hero when I was young? Arthur started sharing stories from his youth. Shirou felt a sense of déjà vu but listened intently to the man who had saved him once again. We'll need to take a break soon. Orario is quite far, so we'll need to stop at a few inns for a rest, Arthur explained with a broad smile on his face. All right, thank you, sir. The two of them entered one of the inns after storing their belongings and horse-drawn carriage. The inn they stayed at was of lower quality than the ones Shirou had stayed in before. Even the price was higher, which Shirou understood, as the inn looked deserted and had only a few guests. Shirou entered the room he rented, which was right next to Arthur's room. Good night, sir. Good night, kid. Sleep well, the journey is still long. Arthur reminded him. Shirou closed the door, lay down, and covered himself with a blanket. A long dream had just begun. The dream had just started, but Shirou knew it was a continuation of the dream from the previous night. He saw his other self, who had won the Holy Grail War, alongside Saber. With their combined strength, they defeated Gilgamesh and destroyed the Holy Grail. In that dream, all he could see was Saber returning to the throne of heroes, still unable to erase the regrets she had during her time as king. The two of them parted with smiles filled with unspoken words. After the bitter end of the Holy Grail War, Shirou didn't stop pursuing his dream. He and Rin traveled together to England, to the headquarters of the Mages Association at Clock Tower. While Rin was accepted as an apprentice of the true magic user Zelrich, Shirou continued his father's legacy and became the second Magus killer, efficiently hunting down criminals targeted by the Mages Association. In the dream, his relationship with Rin wasn't as close as he remembered in his previous world. Shirou, consumed by the dream he promised to his father, pressed forward without caring about the consequences. He killed criminals, exposed the scandals of nobles at Clock Tower, hunted vampires or dead apostles, and did it all relentlessly. Every time he met Rin, she tried to remind him, but Shirou always ignored her, and eventually, she gave up on him. It all came with consequences. The people who had supported him ended up betraying him. Shirou, who had always prioritized justice without favoritism, eventually felt the weight of his actions. All the factions he had wronged harbored grudges against him, while others saw him as a mad dog who couldn't be reasoned with. His life ended with a false accusation. He was captured by the elite forces sent by the Mages Association and sentenced for crimes he had never committed. His punishment was death by hanging. Shirou felt no regret, knowing that this was always going to be his fate. As he was led to the gallows, he looked around. The people surrounding him glared with hatred, and Rin looked at him with disappointment. But Shirou still smiled, even as the noose was placed around his neck. When the lever was pulled and the floor gave way, his body began to fall, and his head hung. In a whisper, he muttered, "Father, have I become a hero?" Shirou woke up, drenched in sweat. His tunic was soaked from the nightmare. He knew exactly what the dream was about. It was a glimpse of Archer's past. I won't have any regrets. Shirou knew that he might end up the same way. Even though he was in a different world, his dream remained unchanged, and people's attitudes might still be the same. Who knows, his end might even be worse than Archer's. Knock, 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 there was a knock on the door. Forcing himself to get up, Shirou opened the door. Through the window, he could see that the sun had already risen, and morning had arrived. Normally, he woke up before sunrise, but the dream had delayed his waking. Slowly, Shirou opened the door, and there stood the old man with a broad smile. Wake up, kid. You've got to get ready. We're leaving in a few hours. Thank you for the reminder, Arthur-san. That morning continued with breakfast prepared by the inn, a bath in the public bathhouse, and a trip to the market for supplies. Time flew by, and before Shirou realized it, he was back in Arthur's carriage. Time passed quickly as Arthur kept talking. Throughout the journey, Shirou half listened to Arthur's stories and responded half-heartedly to the old man's questions. The dream from the night before continued to haunt him, souring his mood. The journey continued, and each night they either stopped at an inn or slept inside the carriage on the roadside. Nothing disturbed them, except for Shirou's recurring nightmares. At the end of Archer's life, he was given the chance by the consciousness of humanity, Emiya, to become a counter-guardian. He thought that by becoming a counter-guardian, he would continue the dream his father had given him. Archer accepted Emiya's offer with a grateful heart. But what he had thought was completely wrong. He wasn't called to be a hero, he was summoned only as an executioner, a tool to kill without mercy. He was sent into war zones, killing everyone involved, eradicating infectious diseases by slaughtering all the patients, and burning their bodies until nothing remained. He destroyed mass weapon factories, even if it meant wiping out entire cities. Each time he was summoned, he became more submerged in a sea of blood from his victims. Again and again and again. He did this for years, without counting his age. The dream continued every time Shirou slept at night. Each night, Archer completed 1 or 2 missions in the dream, and with each one, Shirou came to understand why Archer had become so cynical. He had gone from a young man, full of optimism about his dream, to someone who despised that dream and loathed his younger self for never thinking about anything or anyone besides that dream. The dream always ended with Archer being summoned as the servant, Archer in the 5th, Holy Grail War, the same war Shirou had experienced as Saber's master. "Wake up, kid, we've arrived." Arthur shook Shirou's body, waking him from his midday nap. As usual, Shirou woke up drenched in sweat, his clothes soaked. "You always seem restless when you sleep. Do you often have nightmares?" Arthur asked, sounding concerned. "It's nothing, sir. Just memories of the past," Shirou replied, giving a white lie. He didn't want to worry the man who had helped him so much. He already felt like he was a burden. "Ahahaha." Arthur slapped Shirou's shoulder and said, "New surroundings will make you nervous, but I'm sure you'll become a famous adventurer in this city." The old man said it with the intention of cheering Shirou up. Shirou smiled and jokingly replied, "When I'm famous, I won't forget to give you an autograph." "Ahahaha." Arthur burst out laughing, wiping the tears from the corners of his eyes. "I'll be waiting for that, but don't take too long, I'm not getting any younger." After that, the two of them parted ways with a hug. Arthur gently patted Shirou's hair before heading off to take care of his own business in Orio. Shirou wondered if Arthur saw him as his own son or grandson since the old man lived alone with no one else by his side. Shirou hoped he could fulfill the promise he had made to Arthur, as he had failed to fulfill his previous promises. From outside the city, Shirou could see a tall tower rising into the sky. He knew it was Babel Tower, which Arthur had told him about during their journey. The tower reminded him of the Tower of Babel from ancient Babylon. Whether there was a connection or not, Shirou didn't know. Entering Orio, Shirou immediately felt a different atmosphere. Orio was much busier than the previous cities he had visited. Many different races appeared to live peacefully here, and Shirou saw more races than just elves. He noticed a dark elf woman preparing her arrows, a short, stocky man, also known as a dwarf, with a thick beard, carried a hammer on his shoulder, while a small-framed young man lugged a large bag that was twice the size of his body. Those 3 must be in a group, thought Shirou. However, the most unique sight for Shirou was the beast humans, who had animal body parts. Most of them had animal ears, like those of cats, dogs, wolves, and many others. Thud. Without realizing it, while Shirou was busy watching the people around him, he bumped into a girl directly in front of him. The girl had bluish-gray hair tied in a small knot styled into a ponytail. She fell to the ground, while Shirou remained standing, his right knee bent forward. Ouch! The girl winced in pain, holding her head, which was adorned with a white maid's headband. Feeling guilty, Shirou extended his hand. "Miss, are you all right?" The girl took Shirou's hand and stood up with his help. She dusted off her white apron, which covered her light green maid's uniform. Without any hint of anger or frustration, she smiled sweetly and asked, "First time in Orio, huh?" Shirou, who had expected her to be upset, froze for a moment. He felt like a country bumpkin who had never been to the city before. Scratching his head, he replied, yes. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention to where I was going. Let me think. The girl placed her index finger on the corner of her lips. Flustered, Shirou quickly apologized again. I'm really sorry. I'll do anything to make it up to you. The girl's smile grew wider. That's more like it. How about this, tonight, come to the Hostess of Fertility restaurant and order the special menu under my name. Many questions popped into Shirou's head, from the restaurant's location to what the special menu might be, but first, he asked the most important question. Ordering the special under your name. May I know your name? Without hesitation, the girl with the grayish-blue hair extended her hand. Seer Flova. I'm a waitress at Hostess of Fertility. If you order the special, I'll get a bonus. Shirou shook her hand. Shirou Emiya. I'm just a traveler who recently arrived in this city. As he shook Seer's hand, Shirou noticed something unusual with one of his senses. It wasn't his sense of touch that felt the softness of the girl's hand, nor was it his sense of sight that appreciated her beauty. It was his sense of smell that detected something out of the ordinary. He wasn't a perverted guy who enjoyed sniffing girls, but his nose was sensitive to supernatural occurrences. During the Holy Grail War, he was able to detect the sigils placed and hidden by Ryder. This time, he smelled the scent of flowers blooming in the winter coming from Seer. Shirou knew that the scent wasn't from perfume but rather from a supernatural aura emanating from Seer. He began to wonder, could Seer be something other than human? Shirou had never smelled anything like this from Saber or Rin. Oddly, the scent reminded him of Ryder, Berserker, and even Gilgamesh, though none of them had a floral fragrance. You can let go of my hand now, Seer's soft voice snapped Shirou out of his thoughts. Hurriedly, Shirou released her hand, which had been in his grip for too long. Sorry, I didn't mean anything by it. He was worried she might think he was making excuses just to hold her hand. He. Seer giggled at Shirou's panic. So, what about my offer? Feeling embarrassed, Shirou couldn't possibly refuse the girl's request, especially since he had wronged her twice. Of course, I'll accept, but I don't know where your restaurant is. That's easy. Our restaurant is pretty famous. Just turn right from the entrance to the dungeon, and it's on that street. If you get lost, you can ask any of the locals. Seer explained the location with both of her fingers. Shirou nodded. Alright, I promise I'll be there tonight. I'll be waiting, don't forget. Seer said, waving as she walked away. Stiffly, Shirou returned the wave. Chapter 9. As the sun set in Orario, the glowing neon lights and the bustling sounds of people filled the air after Shirou's busy day. There wasn't much he could do that day. He arrived in the late afternoon, and after meeting Seer, he spent his remaining time wandering around the city. From Shirou's perspective, Orario seemed like a peaceful and orderly city. While it couldn't be called wealthy, the residents he observed looked happy. After his stroll, Shirou made his way to keep the promise he had made to the waitress he met earlier. Standing before him was a restaurant with a sign that read, Hostess of Fertility. This is the restaurant where Seer works, Shirou muttered, then opened the door to enter. He was greeted by the bustling atmosphere of the restaurant. Hostess of Fertility welcomed guests with a warm and cozy vibe. Though it wasn't luxurious, the restaurant had a unique elegance that invited anyone who stepped inside. The restaurant's walls were decorated with soft colors and simple designs, creating a relaxing and pleasant environment. The waitresses were young, attractive girls in green uniforms, wearing aprons and made headbands. They came from various races. Shirou noticed a pair of cat people with black and brown hair, respectively, carrying dishes to the rowdy restaurant customers. A blonde elf with cold blue eyes was pouring drinks. And a human girl with light blue hair sat waiting at a table in the center of the restaurant. It was Seer, the girl Shirou had promised to meet. Seer sat there, looking as though she was waiting for someone. Shirou, who had already spotted her, approached. "Hey, have you been waiting for me long?" Shirou asked as he sat down beside Seer. Her eyes widened, and she smiled. So you finally came. How could you let a pretty girl wait for you?" Before Shirou could respond to Seer's teasing, the light blue-haired girl called out, "Mamma mia, one special order for the main table." Cold sweat began to form on Shirou's forehead. The money he brought to Ororio was limited, coming from his kobold hunt. Seeing the panic on Shirou's face, Seer's smile widened. Shirou-san, could it be you don't have enough, Valis?" The scent of winter lavender flowers grew stronger from Seer's body, as if it intensified when she successfully teased him. Not wanting Seer to think he was some pervert who enjoyed sniffing women he had just met, Shirou turned away and sighed. Looks like I'll need to find a side job because my savings have been squeezed dry by a certain waitress. Seer giggled at Shirou's complaint. "If you can entertain me tonight, maybe I'll help you find a side job." Hearing Seer's ambiguous words, Shirou was taken aback, and embarrassment began creeping onto his face. He shook his head vigorously, trying to get rid of the strange thoughts. "So what do you mean by entertain, Seer?" Seer had been watching Shirou's changing expressions, clearly amused. She giggled, feeling satisfied after teasing him. "Don't get any strange ideas. You're new to Ororio, aren't you?" Shirou nodded. "So, tell me something interesting from your hometown," Seer continued. "My hometown?" Shirou thought back to his home in Fuyuki. The traditional house Kiritsugu left behind, which was clearly too large for him. Seer observed Shirou as he smiled to himself, reminiscing about his past. "Yes, your hometown. Surely there's something interesting there, right?" Shirou nodded slowly. "Fuyuki. It's not a big city like Ororio, but it's full of memories. There are many places I loved, like the park near the river or the summer night market that was always lively. But what left the biggest impression on me was my home. A traditional, large house with a peaceful atmosphere. However, behind all that tranquility, a lot of things happened." Seer's eyes gleamed with curiosity. "A lot of things happened? What do you mean?" Shirou paused for a moment, contemplating whether to talk about the Holy Grail War and the chaos he had experienced. But he decided not to go too deep. "I went through a lot there. Battles, losses, and meeting people who became important to me. Even though there was a lot of sadness, I cherish every moment I experienced there." Seer nodded slowly, seeming to understand there was more behind Shirou's words. "Sounds like a place full of memories. I'm glad you shared that with me. Maybe one day you can show me that place." Shirou gave a faint smile. "Maybe. If fate allows." The food they ordered finally arrived, filling the air with a delicious aroma. "Enjoy, Shirou-san. This is one of the best dishes at Hostess of Fertility." Shirou nodded and began eating, feeling a bit more relaxed, though his mind was still filled with memories from his past. Seer, on the other hand, continued to watch him with a warm smile, enjoying the conversation and the company of this mysterious man. Amidst the warm and comforting atmosphere, Shirou felt a brief sense of peace, something he hadn't experienced in a long time. However, beneath that peace, there was a feeling that something big and unexpected awaited him in Ororio. Something that would test the limits of his abilities and perhaps lead him to a fate even greater than he had ever imagined. After enjoying the delicious meal for some time, Shirou looked around the restaurant, realizing how warm and welcoming it was. But he knew that staying in Ororio wouldn't be easy, especially with his dwindling funds. Shirou decided to ask, "Seer, do you know of any cheap inns around here? I need a place to stay while I look for work." Seer smiled softly, thinking for a moment. a cheap inn, huh? There are a few places in the city, but I have a better idea. Shirou looked at her curiously. What idea? There are some rooms upstairs in this restaurant that aren't being used. Mama Mia sometimes rents them out to people who need temporary housing, especially if they work here. I could talk to Mama Mia for you, Seer said, her smile widening. Shirou looked surprised but also relieved. Are you serious? That would be really helpful. But, would it be okay for you and Mama Mia? Seer shook her head. Of course. Besides, I'm sure Mama Mia wouldn't mind, especially if you can help out here in return. How about it? Shirou pondered for a moment. Working at Hostess of Fertility wasn't what he had in mind when he first arrived in Orario, but it would give him a place to stay and a chance to get to know the city better. Plus, he couldn't keep relying on others without making an effort himself. If Mama Mia agrees, I'd be very grateful. I'll help out here to cover the cost of my stay, Shirou said firmly. Seer smiled excitedly. Great. I'll go talk to Mama Mia right now. Wait here. Seer got up and walked toward the kitchen, where the loud voices of the chefs could be heard. While waiting, Shirou felt a warmth in his heart, something he hadn't felt since leaving Fuyuki. He couldn't help but be grateful for the kindness Seer and the people of Orario had shown him so far. Not long after, Seer returned with a wide smile. Mama Mia agreed. You can stay in one of the rooms upstairs. But in exchange, you have to help out here every day. What do you think? Shirou nodded confidently. That sounds fair. Thank you so much, Seer. I'll do my best. Great. Come on, I'll show you to your room, Seer said as she led Shirou to the stairs that went up to the second floor. As they walked upstairs, Shirou felt that although he was far from home and facing a lot of uncertainty, he wasn't alone. In Orario, he would make new friends and perhaps fulfill his dream. With renewed determination, Shirou prepared himself for the challenges and adventures ahead. Seer's POV. As Shirou followed my steps up to the second floor, I couldn't help but keep watching him. There was something incredibly intriguing about this man, something different from the other adventurers who often came to Orario. Though he smiled and spoke politely, there was a shadow of darkness behind his deep brown eyes. Like a once sharp blade, now dulled and rusted. I had seen many people in Orario, adventurers, merchants, even people from far-off places. But Shirou Emiya, he was a puzzle that piqued my curiosity. His soul, which should have been filled with youthful vigor, seemed tired, like a war veteran who had lost his innocence far too soon. When I looked at him more closely, I could see invisible scars beneath the surface. He hid them well, but not from someone with trained eyes like mine. Every movement he made, the way he spoke, even the way he smiled, it was all a shield. A defense to protect himself from deeper wounds. What have you been through, Shirou-san? I wondered to myself. What could have damaged a soul so deeply at such a young age? I remembered the first time I saw him earlier today. His gaze, though gentle, carried a heavy burden. Like someone who had witnessed too much death, too much suffering. That wasn't something that time alone could heal, especially if the wounds were etched so deeply into his heart. While he appeared calm and courteous on the surface, there was something within him that drew me in. A strange allure that made me want to know more. Would he ever open up to me? Or would he continue to keep his secrets locked away, letting the rust in his soul consume him from within? But one thing was certain, I wanted to see what lay hidden behind that shield. Maybe not now, but someday. I wanted to understand who Shirou Emiya really was and what had shaped him into the person he had become. When we reached the door to the room that would be his new home, I turned to him and smiled. This is your room, Shirou-san. I hope you'll feel comfortable here. He returned my smile with a nod, though I could see a hint of confusion in his eyes. Perhaps he was wondering why I was being so kind to him. But that wasn't something for him to worry about right now. I knew I had to be careful. Someone like Shirou could be a danger to himself if not treated with care. Yet, beneath all the hardness and damage, I could sense something pure within him. Something that hadn't been completely lost, even though it was buried under layers of darkness and pain. Shirou-san, I said softly, if you ever want to talk or need anything, don't hesitate to come to me, okay? He seemed surprised by my words, but then that soft smile returned to his face. Thank you, Sir. I'll keep that in mind. I just nodded and left him there, standing at the door of his new room. As I walked back downstairs, I couldn't stop thinking about how fascinating this man was. Shirou Emiya was a mystery, and I was determined to uncover all his secrets, little by little. Because even though his soul seemed rusted and scarred, I was sure there was something beautiful hidden inside. Something worth discovering. Chapter 10. Night had fallen over Ororio, and after a long day, Shirou finally lay down on the bed in the small room provided by Sir and Mama Mia. Though simple, the room was quite comfortable. Soft-colored curtains shielded the room from the chill of the night, and the noise from the restaurant below began to quiet down. Shirou felt tired, not only from his journey but also from the heavy thoughts that constantly haunted him. After a while, his eyelids began to grow heavy, and before he knew it, Shirou had fallen into a deep sleep. However, his sleep was not an escape from reality. Instead, he quickly plunged into a strange dream, one that felt so real, as if he had returned to a past that wasn't his own. In the dream, Shirou stood in an unfamiliar place. All around him was a ravaged battlefield, filled with the ruins of buildings and scorched earth. The sky was a blood-red color, and in the distance, Shirou could see the blurry shadows of figures engaged in battle. In the middle of the battlefield, he saw someone familiar, a man dressed in red with dark black armor, wielding twin swords in both hands. His white, disheveled hair and sharp, weary eyes emitted a strong aura of determination and fatigue. Archer. Shirou's heart raced as he realized who was standing in front of him. This man was him, or at least, a shadow of his future filled with disappointment and regret. But something was different this time. Shirou saw Archer fighting, not to kill or erase traces of his past, but to protect someone Shirou had never seen before. That figure was a young man with brown hair and eyes full of courage, Fujimaru Ritsuka. Ritsuka, a master from Chaldea, appeared to be leading his forces with unshakable spirit, and Archer was by his side, protecting him from every incoming attack. Something had changed in Archer, he was no longer consumed by hatred or despair. Instead, Shirou could sense a hope that had begun to reawaken within him. Archer fought with all his might, shielding Ritsuka from countless threats. Every strike he made seemed full of conviction, as if he had rediscovered his purpose in life, a purpose that had been lost for so long. As Shirou watched, he felt a mix of emotions. He knew that Archer was a reflection of his own wounded self, but seeing Archer now fighting for someone else, for a greater cause, reignited a spark within him. Suddenly, Archer turned towards Shirou, as if aware of his presence. Their eyes met, and for the first time, Shirou saw a small smile on Archer's face. "I know you're there, Shirou." Archer's voice echoed in Shirou's mind. "I know you may still doubt the path we chose. But through this battle, I've realized something. Even though we've fallen, even though we've failed, the dream of becoming a hero still lives within you. It never truly died." Archer paused, gazing at the crimson sky filled with flashes of distant combat. "Through Fujimaru Ritsuka, I've come to understand that being a hero isn't always about saving everyone, but about fighting for what's right, even if it's just for one person, one moment, or one final chance." Shirou stood silently, captivated by Archer's words. He felt confused yet enlightened. This dream, or perhaps this memory, had changed the way he viewed his own journey. Archer continued, "I may just be a broken shadow of you, but if there's one thing I want to tell you, it's this: never stop dreaming, Shirou. Never stop fighting to be a hero, even if the world laughs at you, or even if that dream leads you to suffering. Shirou reached out to Archer, wanting to say something, but before he could, the battlefield began to fade. The dream world started to collapse, and Shirou felt himself being pulled back into the darkness. Back to reality. Shirou awoke, breathing heavily, drenched in cold sweat. He sat up in bed, staring out the window where the sky over Orario was beginning to lighten with the dawn. Archer's words still echoed in his ears, stirring a strange mix of anxiety and hope within his heart. That dream, was it just an illusion, or was it truly a memory from a future that never came to pass? But one thing was certain, the spirit of becoming a hero, which he had once questioned and doubted, was now beginning to grow again inside him, like a small flame flickering in the dark night. With newfound determination, Shirou sighed deeply. He knew that his journey in Orario had just begun, and with all the challenges ahead, he would fight, not just for himself, but for the dream he had always chased, to become a hero, no matter how difficult the path might be. After waking from the powerful dream, Shirou spent a few moments reflecting before deciding to get out of bed. The soft morning light was beginning to filter through the small window in his room, and he could hear faint sounds from downstairs. It was still too early for the restaurant to open, but he felt restless. Shirou decided to head downstairs to see if there was anything he could help with. When he arrived at the main floor, the restaurant was still quiet. However, he saw someone already busy setting up tables and chairs, ensuring everything was neat and ready for the day. The figure was a blonde elf with piercing blue eyes, who exuded a calm and serious demeanor. Shirou recognized her as the waitress he had seen the night before, who seemed different from the others with her more regal and composed aura. The elf seemed focused on her work, not noticing Shirou as he entered the main dining area. "Good morning," Shirou greeted softly, trying not to disturb her too much. The elf turned gracefully, and for a moment, her bright blue eyes gazed sharply at Shirou. However, her gaze softened slightly as she recognized him as the guest who had just checked in. "Good morning," she replied in a soft yet controlled voice. "You're the new guest who arrived yesterday, correct?" Shirou nodded. "Yes, my name is Shirou Emiya. I'm staying here thanks to Seer and Mama Mia's help." The elf nodded slowly, then introduced herself. "I am Rio Lion, one of the waitresses at Hostess of Fertility. Welcome to Orario." "Thank you, Rio-san," Shirou replied politely. "I woke up early and thought I'd help with the preparations. I don't want to just stay here without doing anything." Rio studied Shirou for a moment, as if assessing his intentions. After a few seconds that felt like a careful evaluation, she finally nodded. "If you want to help, I won't refuse. We're still getting the restaurant ready for breakfast. There are a few things you can do," she said, her voice calm and professional. "I'd be happy to help. What should I do?" Shirou asked, feeling relieved to contribute. Rio stepped over to a nearby table and picked up some cleaning supplies. "You can start by cleaning the tables and chairs in the main area. Make sure everything is neat and ready for the customers." Shirou nodded and immediately grabbed a cleaning cloth and a bucket of clean water. He began working meticulously, making sure every table and chair was in perfect condition. Meanwhile, Rio continued her duties, arranging cutlery and ensuring the kitchen was ready for the day. As they worked together, the atmosphere became more comfortable. Though Rio didn't speak much, her calm presence gave Shirou the feeling that he was accepted here, at least for now. After a while, Rio finally broke the silence. "You're quite skilled at this. Have you worked in a restaurant before?" Shirou smiled slightly, still wiping down a table. "Not professionally, but I often cook and take care of my own home. So, I'm used to this kind of work." Rio nodded, seemingly impressed, though she didn't show it clearly. "That's a useful skill. Especially in a place like this." Shirou just nodded in agreement. "I'm happy to help. I want to show my gratitude for being allowed to stay here." Rio paused for a moment, looking at Shirou with her calm blue eyes. You don't need to feel like you owe anything. If you work hard and show good intentions, that's more than enough. Ryu's simple words carried a deep meaning for Shirou. He felt relieved that the people in Orario, despite their differences, had a strong spirit of mutual support. After a while, the restaurant began to look ready to open its doors. Shirou and Ryo stood for a moment, admiring their work. "You've been a great help today, Shirou-san," Ryo said in a tone slightly warmer than before. "If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask." Shirou smiled and bowed slightly in gratitude. "Thank you, Ryo-san. I'll remember that." The front door of Hostess of Fertility chimed softly as it opened, and 3 familiar girls entered with energetic steps. They were the regular waitresses of the restaurant, well acquainted with the loyal customers and the atmosphere of the place. Anya, Chloe, and Lunwar seemed ready to start their day, wearing their neatly pressed green uniforms with cheerful expressions on their faces. Anya, a cat people with orange hair and bright green eyes, quickly noticed the unusual scene. Near one of the tables, Ryo was talking to a red-haired man she didn't recognize. The man seemed to be working, wiping the table with focused attention. Anya excitedly jumped forward, her tail moving energetically. "Nya. Who's this guy?" she asked curiously, her ears twitching. Chloe, a Chianthrope with brown hair and a playful grin, followed behind Anya, her gaze filled with interest. "Oh, do we have a new employee?" "Mamma Mia didn't tell me about this," she said with a small laugh. Lunwar, a human girl with wavy black hair, looked a bit calmer but no less curious. "It's strange. Mamma Mia usually doesn't let outsiders work here without a reason." Ryo, noticing her friend's attention, turned towards them and explained calmly. "This is Shirou Emiya, a guest staying here. He's just helping out temporarily." Shirou paused his work for a moment and bowed slightly to the 3 girls who had just entered. "Good morning, I'm Shirou. It's nice to meet you all," he said with a friendly smile. Anya immediately approached Shirou, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Nya, you seem hardworking. But why are you here, Shirou?" Before Shirou could answer, Chloe chimed in teasingly, "Are you trying to steal the hearts of the girls here? Or maybe Ryo's heart?" Hearing that, Shirou chuckled awkwardly, feeling a bit embarrassed. No, I just wanted to help out because I felt bad staying here without doing anything." Lunwar, with a gentle smile, patted Chloe on the shoulder. "Don't tease our guest, Chloe. Shirou-san, thank you for your help. You've made our work easier this morning." Shirou smiled and nodded. "You're welcome. I'm happy to help. It's the least I can do compared to the kindness you've all shown me." Anya seemed pleased with his response. "You seem like a good person, Shirou. But Nya Mamma Mia doesn't impress easily. So, you'll have to work hard." Chloe laughed again. "Oh, that's true. But don't worry, Shirou-san. If you keep being this diligent, maybe we can convince Mamma Mia to hire you permanently." Ryo only offered a faint smile, observing the interaction between them. She felt relieved to see that Shirou was being accepted well by her colleagues. Even though Shirou was a stranger in Orario, he seemed like someone who could easily become part of their small community. "All right, let's get to work," Ryo said, taking the initiative to end the light-hearted conversation. "The restaurant will open soon, and we need to make sure everything is ready." Shirou nodded and eagerly returned to his tasks. He felt happy and a bit more at ease being around these friendly people. Perhaps, even though he was in a world completely foreign to him, he had finally found a place where he could feel accepted, at least for now. Meanwhile, Anya, Chloe, and Lunwar also returned to their duties, occasionally flashing a smile or a glance of interest towards Shirou. It seemed like today would be an interesting day at Hostess of Fertility. As Shirou continued working alongside the other waitresses, a question arose in his mind. He glanced around but didn't see the girl who had helped him before. Wiping sweat from his forehead after finishing cleaning a table, Shirou asked, "By the way, I haven't seen Seer this morning. Is she not working today? Anya, who was carrying a stack of plates, paused for a moment and turned with her characteristic smile. Nya, Seer-chan. Oh, she likes to come in late, especially if she had too much fun the night before, she replied with a teasing tone. Chloe, hearing this, chuckled softly. Yeah, that's true. Seer has a habit of coming in late when she feels like there's no rush. But don't worry, she'll show up soon. She's probably just sleeping in. Lunwar nodded in agreement. That's how Seer is. But strangely, Mama Mia never gets mad at her. Seer always has a way of making herself likable, no matter what. Shirou smiled lightly at their explanations. Oh, I see. I thought Seer was the type of person who was very disciplined, but it seems she's pretty relaxed about time, he murmured, returning to wiping the table. Chloe continued with a mischievous expression, oh, don't be fooled by her sweet face, Shirou-san. Seer can be quite laid back when she wants to be. But she's also very reliable, especially when it comes to making customers feel comfortable. Ryo, who had been quietly listening while setting up the utensils, added in a calm tone, Seer has her own way of doing things. And even though she's often late, she remains one of the best waitresses here. The customers love her. Shirou nodded, feeling like he understood a bit more about the mysterious girl who had helped him. I see, well, I hope she shows up soon, he said, still smiling. Inwardly, Shirou was curious about who Seer really was. There was something intriguing and slightly mysterious about her that made him want to know more. However, he decided to wait and see. After all, he was just happy to be in a place where the people were so warm and welcoming. Hostess of Fertility began to fill with morning sunlight, and the restaurant became busier with customers coming in for breakfast. The aroma of toasted bread, hot soup, and other delicious foods filled the air, creating a lively and pleasant atmosphere. Customers started sitting at their tables, and the waitresses, Anya, Chloe, Lunwar, and Ryo, efficiently began taking and delivering orders. Shirou saw the bustling activity and felt a desire to help even more. Noticing the busy kitchen at the back of the restaurant, he realized there was an opportunity to lend a hand. With steady steps, he walked towards the kitchen. At the entrance of the kitchen, he was stopped by a loud, authoritative voice. Hey! What do you think you're doing, kid? This kitchen is for staff only. The voice belonged to a large woman with impressive blonde hair and a tough demeanor. This was Mama Mia, the owner of the restaurant, known for her strict reputation in running the kitchen. Shirou paused for a moment and smiled politely. I understand, Mama Mia. But I wanted to offer my help. I'm fairly good at cooking and thought I could ease some of the workload here. Mama Mia glared at Shirou with sharp eyes, as if assessing how serious he was. Ha! Kid, my kitchen isn't a place to mess around. I don't let just anyone come in and ruin the reputation of this restaurant with questionable food. Shirou, not one to back down easily, decided to take up the challenge. In that case, how about I cook something for you to taste first? If it doesn't meet your standards, I won't push it. Hearing that, the waitresses nearby stifled their laughter, realizing the boldness of Shirou's decision to challenge the notoriously strict Mama Mia. Even Ryo, who rarely showed much emotion, seemed surprised by Shirou's daring. Anya whispered to Chloe, "Yeah, he's really brave, does he even know who he's dealing with?" Mama Mia narrowed her eyes, then smiled in her signature way. Ha! Alright, kid. I like your spirit. If you can make something worthy of being served in my restaurant, I'll consider letting you work in the kitchen. But if it's not up to par, don't expect to come near this kitchen again. Shirou nodded firmly. Deal, Mama Mia. With determined steps, he approached the kitchen counter, which was already stocked with ingredients. In the kitchen of Hostess of Fertility. Mama Mia gave Shirou temporary permission and allowed him some space to work. Shirou quickly began selecting ingredients, fresh vegetables, meat, herbs, and spices available in the kitchen. With trained precision and speed, he began chopping, slicing, and preparing the ingredients with skilled hands. Ryo, Anya, Chloe, and Lunwar stood at the kitchen door, watching as Shirou worked with focused concentration. His hands moved quickly and confidently, as though he was well versed in the art of cooking. They observed how he combined the ingredients with care, using techniques that seemed quite advanced. After a short while, the kitchen was filled with an enticing aroma. Shirou had finished preparing a simple dish, a hearty meat soup with fragrant vegetables and a slice of toasted bread topped with garlic butter. He plated the dish and, with confidence, presented it to Mamma Mia. Mamma Mia, known for her sharp palate, took a spoon and tasted the soup Shirou had made. She chewed slowly, her eyes still locked on Shirou as if trying to read his thoughts. For a moment, there was silence, and the atmosphere grew tense. The waitresses waited with anticipation. Anya held her breath, Lunwar watched cautiously, and Chloe smiled, clearly enjoying the suspense. Shirou stood calmly, waiting for Mamma Mia's verdict. After a few moments, Mamma Mia finally swallowed the bite and set the spoon down. Her face remained serious, revealing no clear expression. Suddenly, Mamma Mia laughed heartily. "Ha! Not bad, kid. Actually, it's delicious," she said with a satisfied grin. "You know how to use ingredients properly, and the taste is spot on. But don't get too full of yourself. This is just one dish, and my kitchen has more challenges for you." Shirou smiled in relief. "Thank you, Mamma Mia. I'm ready for the next challenge." Mamma Mia nodded. "All right, kid. You can work in my kitchen, but only under supervision. I don't want any mistakes here. Got it?" Shirou nodded enthusiastically. "Understood, Mamma Mia." With that, Shirou was officially allowed to help in the kitchen of Hostess of Fertility. The waitresses cheered softly, and the day began with a livelier atmosphere. Shirou felt satisfied, knowing he had taken a small step to prove himself in this new city. As the kitchen buzzed with activity, the front door of the restaurant gently opened, and the long-awaited figure finally appeared. Sir Flova entered with her usual cheerful smile, though she looked slightly surprised to see the restaurant already bustling with activity. The blue-haired girl seemed puzzled, especially when she saw Shirou in the kitchen, busily helping with breakfast preparations. Sir's eyes widened, full of curiosity. She quickly approached the other waitresses gathered near a table, still nibbling on the leftovers of Shirou's cooking. What's going on here?" Sir asked with a small laugh. "How is Shirou working in the kitchen? Mamma Mia is usually very strict about who's allowed in there." Anya, who was munching on some of Shirou's garlic toast, grinned widely. "Nya Sir-chan. You missed something exciting this morning." Shirou challenged Mamma Mia and convinced her with his cooking. "You should try it too, it's delicious," she said, handing a piece of garlic toast to Sir. Chloe, wiping her lips with a napkin, added teasingly, "Yeah, Sir. Even I didn't expect it, but his cooking is really worth trying." Even Mamma Mia agreed, and you know how rare that is. Sir accepted the piece of toast from Anya, still looking curious. She glanced towards the kitchen, where Shirou was focused on chopping vegetables. Sir's eyes narrowed slightly, as if trying to make sense of the situation. I didn't think Shirou would attempt something so bold. But I'm intrigued," she said, taking her first bite of the toast. As the first bite entered her mouth, Sir's eyes widened slightly, and a broad smile spread across her face. The rich, buttery flavor of the garlic toast, with its crispy exterior, surprised her. "Wow, this is really delicious," Sir exclaimed in surprise. "I didn't expect Shirou's cooking to be this good."
Lunwar, sitting next to her, nodded with a smile. "I agree.
"Maybe we should have Shirou cook more often," she said, half-jokingly. Seer chuckled and nodded, but then glanced back at the kitchen, where Shirou was enthusiastically working on his new tasks. There was something in her gaze, a mix of admiration and deep curiosity. "I guess we'll just have to wait and see," she murmured softly. She then walked over to the kitchen, unable to contain her curiosity any longer. "Shirou-kun," she called out cheerfully, making Shirou turn around with a bit of surprise on his face. "Oh, Seer. You're here," Shirou said, relieved to see her. Seer smiled widely. "Of course. I just didn't expect to see you working in the kitchen. I heard you managed to convince Mamma Mia with your cooking. Is that true?" Shirou scratched his head awkwardly. "Well, I thought it was the best way to repay the favor since I'm staying here, and I wanted to help as much as I could." Seer laughed again. "You're quite an interesting person, Shirou-kun. But don't push yourself too hard, okay?" Shirou smiled and nodded. "Don't worry, I'm fine. Besides, I'm happy to be working here." Seeing their interaction, the other waitresses exchanged glances with smiles on their faces. It seemed like today at Hostess of Fertility had become more exciting than usual, with Shirou's presence bringing a fresh dynamic to their daily routine. After a busy morning of serving breakfast, the customers began leaving Hostess of Fertility with satisfied smiles, praising the dishes prepared by Shirou. The restaurant was filled with the mouth-watering aroma, and everyone in the kitchen felt proud of their work. Shirou, having just finished his tasks, felt happy seeing the customers leave with smiles on their faces. As the breakfast rush ended and the restaurant started to quiet down, Mamma Mia called Shirou over for a conversation. "Shirou, I need to talk to you for a moment," she said in a gentler tone than usual, as she instructed the waitresses to take a break and clean up the dining area. Shirou nodded and followed Mamma Mia to a small table in the corner of the restaurant. "Of course, Mamma Mia. What did you want to talk about?" Mamma Mia sat down, wiping her hands with a napkin, and looked at Shirou seriously. "I've seen how you work in the kitchen and how the customers respond to your cooking. You've got talent. So, I've decided to let you stay in one of the rooms upstairs as long as you work here. It'll give you a comfortable place to stay while you're in Orario." Shirou looked pleased with the offer. "Thank you, Mamma Mia. That would be very helpful." Mamma Mia continued, "However, there's one thing I'd like to know more about. It seems like you're not just here to work. What's your real purpose in Orario?" Shirou thought for a moment before answering. "I came to Orario with the intention of becoming an adventurer and exploring the dungeon. I want to see the world beyond my hometown and find ways to improve my abilities. I believe becoming an adventurer will provide me with valuable experiences." Mamma Mia nodded, observing him closely. "An adventurer, huh? That path is full of challenges and risks. In Orario, being an adventurer isn't easy, and the dungeon can be very dangerous. But if you've already made up your mind, I won't stop you. However, I'd advise you to be cautious and perhaps gather some information or training before diving in." Shirou nodded seriously. "I understand. I've been preparing myself and plan to start training and look for a guild that can support me. I just want to make sure I'm ready before entering the dungeon." Mamma Mia smiled, satisfied with Shirou's explanation. "All right, I'm sure you'll do your best. And don't worry about your place to stay. As long as you work here, you can use the room upstairs. It's not too fancy, but it's comfortable enough." Shirou felt relieved and grateful. "I really appreciate that, Mamma Mia. Thank you so much for this opportunity." Seer, who had been listening to the conversation, decided to join in. She approached the table with a friendly smile. "Sorry to interrupt, but I overheard your conversation. Shirou-kun, before you start as an adventurer, maybe it would be a good idea for you to join a familia." Shirou looked at Seer curiously. "Familia? What's that?" Seer enthusiastically explained, "In Orario, familias are groups of adventurers and other members led by a god or goddess. Joining a familia can help you get training, support, and the resources you need to become an adventurer. They can also help you with dungeon information and battle strategies. Mamma Mia added, Seer's right. Joining a familia is a smart move before you dive into the dungeon. They can provide you with the necessary training and help you understand how to survive in that dangerous environment. Shirou considered their advice and nodded. That sounds like a good idea. I'll gather information about the familias and consider joining one. Seer smiled, satisfied. Great. If you need help finding the right familia or more information, don't hesitate to ask me. I can introduce you to some people who might help. Mamma Mia smiled, pleased that Shirou was receiving extra support. Alright, if you decide to look for a familia, make sure you also keep up with your responsibilities here. Your room upstairs is ready for you. Shirou felt relieved and thankful for their advice and support. Thank you so much, Seer, Mamma Mia. I'll seriously consider everything you've suggested. With a renewed sense of purpose and the support of Seer and Mamma Mia, Shirou was ready to start a new chapter of his adventure in Ororio, seeking the right familia and pursuing the dream he had long chased.